It's summertime and school is out, but already alum of historically black colleges and universities are making plans to attend their homecomings this fall. Still, little to no alumni contributions. That's a big part of the problem of severely low funding for these institutions. We go, but we don't donate. The Thurgood Marshall College Fund reports HBCUs are responsible for 40% of all black engineers, 40% of all black U.S. congressional members, 50% of black lawyers, and 80% of all black judges. Many of these institutions were founded in the Reconstruction era and were the only way the black folk could get a quality education. Yet still, with all the progress we've made, states are still underinvested in HBCUs, and the institutions have lower endowments. A new study released by Philanthropy research groups shows that HBCUs receive 178 times less funding than Ivy League institutions. Our next guest is looking to close that gap, one step at a time. Her name is Crystal Jackson. She's the founder of Head and Heart Philanthropy. She's also the founder of the social media agency Mosaic, which focuses on improving social, economic, and educational outcomes for communities of color. Crystal, thanks so much for joining me. The work you do is so important. How'd you get started doing this?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. Mark, I got started because I saw a need, and I went to Spelman. So, Spelman, they teach us that if we can change the world, and I literally believe that. And I started basically by helping high net worth individuals and foundations come up with what we call impact strategies. But what I soon realized was most of the people that I had the privilege to serve were not from my community. And I wanted to create a platform that would allow me to sort of teach and coach individuals within my community to help be a part of the solution. And that was probably over 20 some years ago now.
So help me think about this solution, right? Because we know the end game is getting enhanced financial support to our black institutions. Right now, they don't get the support. At the end of the day, we want them to have it. But how do we get there?
Well, I launched this cohort, this presidential cohort. Now it's probably been a little under a year when we really started gathering. And here's what I'm thinking will make sense. At least I'm hoping so. I feel like HBCU presidents are international treasures. They literally have the pulse on all things in our community, from the future of work to health equity issues to innovation, you name it. They're serving and working with the future. But also they have access to alumni that are often out in the community and currently in the workforce. But what I noticed was very rarely are HBCU presidents called on to be thought leaders and opinion leaders when we talk about equity issues in the African American community. So I thought bringing together and spotlighting the leadership of HBCU presidents would give them a broader platform, which would then give them more access to opportunity.
Talk to me about our role in all of this. You go to an HBCU homecoming, you see lots of folks. It be packed out. Same thing with Black Greek letter organizations. Everybody got the T-shirts. Everybody got, the bumper stickers. But there's a big gap between our emotional and social and cultural connections to these institutions and our financial commitments. How do you make sense of that, and what do we do about that piece of it?
No, I think you raise a very good point. We go, we celebrate, we have a good time, but we forget that these institutions were established by our grandparents and their parents in some instances. And Mark, they sacrificed so much, but I feel like they've probably made things a little too comfortable for us in some ways. And so what I'm hoping will happen is, as there's this renaissance for young people to return to HBCUs, there will also be a collective consciousness that we have the power and ability to sustain our institutions through our own giving. I mean, if you work for a corporation, 9 times out of 10, there's some program or initiative that will match your giving. And just like you think about all your spending, I think it should be baked into that. If I'm spending money on X, then I need to think about what is my annual contribution to my HBCU. And I think oftentimes people get caught up in the size. It's not, it's start. right? Just start, right? And I think that will go a long way.
That's a great point. There are people who say, well, when I get this promotion or when I get some money, I'm going to donate to school X or Y. But right now, they don't want my little $15 a month. They don't want my $20 a month. But if 1,000 of us give $15 a month, now it's $15,000 a month, right? And suddenly at the end of the year, it's a six-figure, kind of debt. And what could be a considerable debt that might pay for a building to get fixed. It might get the termites or the rodents out the dorm. It might allow us to establish a scholarship fund. I mean, it could be anything, but we need this stuff. One more thing real fast before we go. President Biden, he pledged $1.1 billion. And some people said, well, that's it. It's problem solved. Tell me why that's not the case.
He pledged that, you're saying to the HBCUs?
Yeah, and a lot of people say, well, if the Biden administration can pledge that much money, then there's nothing else that needs to be done. Nothing else is needed.
Oh, no, I totally disagree, right? Part of what convicted me, Mark, was during the pandemic, watching our students struggle to find ways home because they didn't have enough money. They had to crowdfund for bus tickets, plane tickets. But also when I started to realize that so many students didn't even have a basic laptop, that's when I said, okay, something's wrong here. And we have to rethink the way we are approaching supporting our legacy institutions. So yeah, 1.1 billion is something, but it's definitely not enough when you talk about sustainability for long term.
Well, that's why we're going to keep fighting, keep organizing, keep fundraising, keep strategizing. And that's why we need folk like you, Crystal. Thank you so much for joining me on The Grill. We're going to keep the work going.